This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. What up, crowdfunders? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman, and I hope you've been enjoying some of the other episodes that I put out there for you, because a lot of these episodes, my goal is to not only bring you the ways that you can be successful on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, other crowdfunding sites, but I also want you to hear a bit of the success stories, because I think that when you hear people that are just like you going out there, raising a bunch of money and being successful, it makes it so much easier for you to envision yourself doing the exact same thing. There's so many different categories on Kickstarter, whether it's a design project, whether it's something more technology related, or more of a creative thing, something like a board game or something where a publishing project, a film, etc. There's so many different types of products, and I hope that going into the archives of the podcast, you resonate with some of the stories that have been shared on this show. You resonate with some of the people out there who maybe don't consider themselves to be entrepreneurs, but for whatever reason, maybe they're forced to be because they want to create this cool new product or they want to help a particular group of people. They actually go out there and they learn what goes into entrepreneurship and creating a team around themselves. Now, today's episode talks a little bit about something that I would say is not my strong suit at the moment. I spent a lot of my career building up my following in terms of blogging, in terms of podcasting, in terms of YouTube, but one of the areas that I'm still working on is getting better at photography and getting better at also building up my own Instagram profile and following there, and I just haven't devoted enough time to it. So the reason why I wanted to talk to today's guest is they totally brought their A game when it comes to Instagram and tips and advice for growing your following. So they have over 143,000 followers on Instagram for their brand. They have beautiful photographs, tons of engagement. So they're going to come today and to share with you some of the stuff that you can do to up your Instagram game. And also some of the things that worked very well for their Kickstarter project. Their recent Kickstarter project, they raised over $50,000 on Kickstarter for a photography accessory, you could say. And they've also raised money in the past with another Kickstarter campaign that raised over $80,000. So they know what they're talking about when it comes to actually translating attention into buyers, into customers. But now, the other thing that I think that they've gotten really good at is telling a brand story. And I don't really know what that means. Like, when I was just getting started, I didn't really know what storytelling was and how that relates to marketing, but they sort of get into all of that and demystify that for you in today's episode. Now, if you haven't yet, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is blogging. You know, if you've been following me for a long time, I started my blog in 2012. This is crowdcrux.com, and I've been able to make a living doing what I love. That's what we really celebrate on this show. We celebrate freedom, we celebrate being able to do what you love and also make an impact on other people. And for me, blogging has just transformed my entire lifestyle. The other thing that it's done is it's given me a lot of attention in the way of media exposure, in the way of getting attention from my brand, and also just, I think it's been an incredible karmic way to put good things into the universe, whether that's content, educational stuff, entertaining kind of things, and sort of get that back in a sense. And get that back in the form of a community, which I've grown to just love. It's incredible. The stories that I get all the time via email or even just in comment section, like, it's incredible to me, some of the people out there, that what they're doing and why they're doing it. So if you've ever been interested in, and if you've listened to my podcast and you've been interested in creating your own sort of thought leadership in your own niche or your own genre, maybe you want to be an expert in when it comes to traveling, or you want to be an expert when it comes to design or whatever it is. If you've ever thought that, you've ever wanted to become an expert or a thought leader or a blogger and to put out your content, your educational content, and to help the world to get more attention and also to create some passive income for you and your business, I think you're going to like what I'm about to mention. So I put together this complete guide, if you will, when it comes to setting up, starting, marketing, and monetizing your blog. So this has taken me a while to write. I've really gone in depth when it comes to marketing, when it comes to building up your email list, how to write effective blog posts, kind of like if you were to pull back the curtain and all the things that are working behind the scenes of my own blog in order to continue to put out content, in order to get engagement and traffic, and all these different things. I put that into this guide for you. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'm going to link you to it right now. And we also have a Audible version for you. So you can listen to that on the go if you'd like, or you can pick up a physical paperback version of this guide. So the name is Blogging for Beginners. You want to check that out? You can go to crowdcrux.com/blogging. That is crowdcrux.com/blogging. And it's called Blogging for Beginners. Work from home, travel the world, and provide for your family. And of course, doing something that you love and educating people and helping people as you're doing it. I think that's the best job. I think I have the best job on earth. I'm a little bit biased, obviously, but I hope you enjoy that book and also that you enjoy today's podcast episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Really excited to talk to today's guest. He's raised over $50,000 on Kickstarter from more than 200 backers for the best waterproof jacket for travel or photography. Evan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'd love to get started. Maybe you could just tell the listeners a little bit about the jacket and also who it's for, what makes it different, the functionality, all that kind of stuff.
So we started initially with another Kickstarter in 2012 with camera bags that were fashionable and functional. And we've been going for 6 years strong now. And we decided that there was no attractive looking jacket for photo accessories. There's always been vests and stuff like that are like for bird watchers and stuff like that, but nothing that was really utilitarian for photographers that, blended in with, everyday life.
Yeah. So did that first campaign in 2012, that's a long time, 6 years ago, did that start the whole company for you? Like, did this then transform into like an online store? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah. So in 2012, we raised 300% of our asking amount, and we ended up snowballing from there afterwards. It definitely was what initiated it. It bought the first run of our camera bags. They were much different back then. We've evolved a lot and improved on the product. And once that happened, we noticed that a lot of our customers were photographers, and they were taking tons of photos of the bag out in the wild. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of biofeedback for us as far as where the brand was going. I think before that, it was very outlined what the brand was. It was vintage military, and it ended up our customers ended up defining our brand, and then we fine-tuned and honed in on that.
Interesting.
So that's it was interesting because I think we're unique in the way that our customers are photographers. So they were generating a lot of the collateral, and we could see it as, as this thing that was happening. We could see who our customer was.
Yeah, you can see exactly how they were using it. And also, I mean, that's great branding as well. The fact that they're willing to take photos and post that on Instagram and different channels. That's really cool for you guys. So are you like an entrepreneur? Would you classify yourself that way? Did you just create this because you wanted one of these things to exist? How would you define yourself there?
I would say that Kickstarter made me an entrepreneur. It was something that I definitely was always interested in. I had a closet that was full of camera bags, and I never really liked the way that they looked. I always kind of wanted to design my own. I think that was some strange obsession of mine that turned into like this idea. And then I tried it on Kickstarter. The Kickstarter, looking back on it, it's really funny because it's still up there. And it seems extremely primitive to me as far as like what I've learned in the last 6 years as far as branding and all of that stuff goes. Mm-hmm. And it was really, in a weird way to me, I still feel like I had no idea what I was doing. But it also pushed me into, being an entrepreneur and coming up with ideas that way. I was originally a photographer, obviously, and that's kind of where all this came from. So it came from my passion.
2012 also, that's like a breakout year for Kickstarter. That's when I first started to get involved with Kickstarter because it was everywhere, man. Like there were so many campaigns being launched. There still are today, obviously, but that was just a breakout year because everyone then was starting to ask, like, what is this Kickstarter thing? What is this crowdfunding thing? So I think you sort of also hit on right when it was beginning to get a lot of momentum, the site itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was right place, right time, especially with Instagram as well. There's a lot of small brands that were able to propel themselves pre-Instagram monetization. And so everyone was seeing, straight on the feed. It was linear. You could broadcast, the things that you had and
very
have
easily.
An audience see it. Yeah. And same thing with Kickstarter. There wasn't as much noise, I don't think, back then. There wasn't as many projects that were going on at one time. Mm-hmm. So we ended up getting projects we love, which I think it was called Staff Picks.
Yeah, back then, yeah.
Yeah, and so that really helps get more visibility and eyes on the project. And it was just something that obviously people wanted at that time. I think now the market's extremely saturated with, I don't want to say copycats, but people that have definitely been influenced with that era of Instagram marketing and have definitely, followed the trend.
More and more competition, more and more people trying to get into the marketplace. What was it like after that successful campaign? Like, did photographers reach out to you? Did you get any media hits? What kind of happened after that big success, the first one?
So we got a lot of different people covering us. Like, they were mostly blogs and stuff like that. But back then, I feel like that had more of an impact. Photographers were reaching out constantly to shoot our product for us. And as time went on Instagram, I mean, everyone was trying to shoot our bags. It was like a kind of I don't know, like trying to think of a word. It was basically, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's awesome though. The fact that you're getting all this attention.
Yeah.
And even just I was looking at your KickTrack stats, towards the end of that campaign, dude, you were like skyrocketing. It was just like upwards, this massive upwards trajectory at the end of the first campaign there.
Yeah, I agree. I think back then the algorithm was a little bit different. Also, something to note, Facebook ads and stuff like that, and all of these other people that have kind of created platforms around Kickstarter to boost them weren't really there. So it was just a whole different space back then, I think.
Totally. So I want to talk a bit about this recent campaign that you launched, because you launched this new project, a different category to a certain degree. Seems like a new product line, but for the same individual, the same type of customer, which you mentioned was from the feedback, was from seeing people post photos using your bag, and you're like, hey man, maybe there's something to this demographic. What other problems can we solve? It seems like.
Yeah. So basically, as we come out with new products, we're trying to fill more of the needs of the photographer. I think we're also trying to listen to who our customer is, being that they're outdoor adventurers. That's kind of what we discovered through this biofeedback that we were talking about on Instagram. We decided to make stuff kind of more geared towards the people who were going out and traveling. And lately we've been pivoting more towards a global traveler market. The outdoor thing was, I call it like the Pacific Northwest effect of Instagram. That had been going strong for 5 years, but I feel like that trend has changed a lot as that got extremely saturated on Instagram. So we've been focusing more on like another customer that is definitely prevalent, which is the global traveler, the global nomad. And so that's
the digital nomad.
The
right?
digital, yeah, exactly. The geared nomad.
The geared nomad. Man, dude, your Instagram is really impressive here. Like, I'm looking at the page, has over 143,000 followers. Your likes, man, you're getting 1,000+ likes on a lot of these photos. Very cool design work. Just beautifully shot. Do you have any thoughts on that? On ways that people can grow their Instagram? You can just tell a little bit of the story of how yours has grown.
Yeah, sure. I think that when you have a meaningful story behind photos, and I think these bags are photogenic and the product's photogenic, I think that's a key thing there, is that your products are beautiful and people want to take photos of them. Obviously, inherently, our customer is a photographer, so that makes it a little bit easier. But I think that if you have a story behind it, that people want to get on board. They want to connect to the products that they buy because it adds value to them, and they want to tell other people about them. And I think that's part of it. I think it's not having product shots or anything like that. It's perpetuating a lifestyle, and in that product being seamlessly in it. So if it's a product, of course.
Let me ask you a dumb question here. So I understand what you mean if you say like story in the context of a novel or story in the context of a film. What do you mean when you say story when it comes to photography? Like, what exactly does that mean?
Well, a story in terms of our bag. So as an example, our bag is going places. So one of our main catchphrases is "Let's go somewhere." It's a call to action. It's telling people to go get off their butts and to go do something, and to capture that, and to use our product doing that. And so other people are watching these people use our products and getting off of their phones or using their phones to shoot this experience or to go have an experience.
Okay, so it's almost kind of like a vision then, like a vision of you see people in the field that are hiking there, or I see one walking up the steps towards this really cool Chinese palace. It's almost like you see these photos and you're also like, man, I want to do stuff like that. So it's kind of like,
I want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to be there. Yeah.
So it's kind of like writing the story for your life, or this is the vision that I want to be a part of.
Exactly. It's like a vision board, if you will, for your desires. You create that desire in the image. But I mean, that's something that obviously our customers are doing for us, but you also want them to be part of the conversation. And that's what's been really powerful about our Instagram, is that the customers are interacting by taking these photos, by going places, and by actively wanting to show that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to ask you if you use any tools or any tips like techniques for Instagram. But before I do, just one other thing that I wanted to say here is the way that I'm looking at these photos and just imagining people like you have two friends together here looking at this beautiful glacial lake, like in snowy mountains. And it really does set that vision. But it's also, I think, the fact that this bag is sort of like your passport to that world, something like that's accompanying you. So I imagine when you buy one of these, you also feel like, man, I'm ready to do an adventure now. Like it's like the beginning of that adventure, kind of.
Absolutely. It's a catalyst. So, yeah, people sometimes need that extra push to feel like, to feel that. And I think that the bag is also like becomes personified in a funny way with all of these images that people have taken of it, and it becomes part of that story. So that's been a really beautiful thing about the brand, and that's something that has always excited me.
In terms of your tips for others out there in the audience for Instagram, do you have any things that they should be doing more of? Any kind of like tangible tips or advice or resources, tools, anything like that?
Yeah, I think that one of the important things is, as far as a technical tip, is always keeping your front-facing profile page clean and organized so that it always has the idea and message of your brand, so people can quickly understand what it is that you are representing on there. So that always should look nice. And then also, as far as comments or captions go, there should always be something that's engaging your customer. You can always ask questions like posing a question is really good, or anything that engages comments in conversation.
What surprises me is I'm looking at a lot of these photos and you actually don't have hashtags for many of them. Like you do sometimes, but it's like one or two hashtags. One of the things I've heard a lot is like you just loading your photos with hashtags. It doesn't seem like you do that approach though.
So we were back when that was popular. I also don't really follow rules of engagement here. So I don't really like the way that those look on there anymore because I feel like it's dated. I mean, if that's just an honest answer. So I don't really do the hashtag thing. Mm-hmm. Anyways, and a lot of the times we're reposting them. So they do all the hashtagging for us. So that's
okay. Very cool. Very cool. I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. Just in my own life, I've also noticed for those that are listening, Instagram, man, it's been changing a lot. Like Snapchat, I think, used to be sort of the go-to place for watching stories and also posting personal stories of yourself. Now Instagram, I think, has just really started to take that over because I'll post stories on my own Instagram. I'll get way more engagement than on Snapchat and some of these other apps. Have you tried doing like stories as a way to draw people to the page or new products or anything like that?
So we've done takeovers of our stories where we'll have one of our customers or a photographer basically go on a trip. I think the last one was on Vancouver Island, and we'll let them document the entire trip in this beautiful location and kind of announce that there's a takeover going on. And that's been really effective because they all are influencers, and then they post on their own Instagrams that they're going to be live on our page. So those have been cool ways of engaging more people and using the story function. Also,
interesting.
Yeah, and then once you get over 10,000 followers, I think you have the free option, that is very generous of Instagram, to swipe up on a link. So that's also extremely valuable. If you have enough followers, you can use that swipe up and directly link to things from stories.
And that can be doing lots of stuff like driving to a new product, driving to an email capture. You can definitely use that in lots of ways.
Absolutely.
One of the struggles I think that a lot of people have is reaching out to some of these different Instagram influencers. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, have this just mainly been people contacting you, or have you done also active outreach to influencers?
So that's changed a lot over the past 5 years, I'd say. We get a ton of outreach, but it's not necessarily people who align with the brand all the time. But we do offer them an ambassador program, which we've created a back end on our website for them to create their own profiles and share them with people. It uses a template and then it auto fills it with their photography, and they can put all of their links on there. And then at a certain point, we feature some of these people. Another thing is we outreach to people that we find to be extremely captivating and align with our brand. So we end up reaching out to them and creating a trade program with them. As far as like the way that whole environment has changed is that I think that it's not as effective for the influencers anymore. I think that Instagram, once they changed their monetization scale, they completely kind of twinked everything, so to speak, or nerfed it. Yeah, it's an old gaming term, but but basically they made it so that influencers had to work harder, or they were less effective, so that you had to pay for advertising. And that's something that I've definitely noticed, that because the feed is no longer linear, there's not this untapped audience.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. When we're talking about this most recent project, I imagine you had people discovering you on many different social networks, Facebook, Instagram, probably your email list. What was the one that was most responsible, in your opinion, for driving the most traffic and engagement?
Okay, so if I look back at the numbers, I think emailers were really effective. Instagram was super effective. And then just some of the blog posts that we had. There's this one blog, because we're mostly known for bags. Carryology was probably one of the most influential drivers to our Kickstarter.
Okay, so it's sort of a combination there of email, social media, Instagram, and then some of the I guess the PR hits that you had there.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Well, I have some more questions for you on the Kickstarter, but before we do, I just wanted to ask you personally, as a sort of being made an entrepreneur, from having to do your first campaign, having to identify the need, create the product, ship it out. What has it been like with this last project? Because this is an entirely different new category and a whole different set of problems. As an entrepreneur, what has that experience been like, seeing this be a success?
Well, I think that it was much easier this time. I was very ripe on the first campaign and had no idea how to even produce a product. Now I've produced probably well over 30 SKUs and gone back and forth on, probably 6 revisions of the original bag from the first Kickstarter. So that was a lot less scary going into it, knowing how I was going to produce and also deliver the product, logistically. I think that's all part of our business now. So we just kind of plug it in.
Exactly. Yeah. You have a little bit more certainty because you've dealt with similar problems in the past and there aren't as many question marks.
Exactly. I think as far as, the land, like we said, again, the landscape has changed with Kickstarter. So with the jacket, it was a little bit more, I think the whole marketplace is more saturated with bags, with jackets, because of all the obvious, really successful jacket campaigns. We were trying to kind of stick with, in the vein of the first project where it was more niche and it was like to a certain type of traveler. There's other, the other ones were mass, but then a lot of other people are kind of copycatting off of those successes, I think.
I do want to mention too, if you want to check out more, you can go to the best weatherproof jacket for photography on Indiegogo, because you guys now transitioned to the in-demand campaign there after your successful Kickstarter.
That's correct.
I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount. Looking at your Kicktrack stats here for the product, it seems like it was a very arduous climb towards hitting that funding goal. And I don't want to in any way undermine your success. Obviously, you guys have blown past the goal. It's awesome. It's a really cool looking jacket. I urge everyone to go and check it out. But at the same time, I think there's something to be said for when you launch the project, you get a bunch of funding, and then it's like, okay, now what do we do? How are you maintaining momentum or continuing to grow that pledge meter, leading up to the goal?
So here's that's a very interesting question, and by no means is it you're not undermining me. I think something that we did account for and also didn't know if it was true was the timing of when we launched the campaign. And I think it's been a pretty sweltering summer, if that doesn't say it. So basically we're used to our bags being seasonless. I think that's something that I think the climb would have been a lot sharper if we were able to get the Kickstarter out a little bit earlier, during a time where weather was, obviously
colder,
a little bit. Yeah, colder.
Or if I guess you waited until later to launch it, more around Christmas time or November.
Yeah, I think that just because these land in winter, it's not a sell. People are just out there feeling warm right now. So I think that was a huge part of why, if you look at the first project we did, it just kept on going, because we actually launched it. I didn't even notice this until I looked at Kicktrack, sorry. And I noticed that we started that campaign literally parallel, same exact time of month, everything.
It sounds kind of silly, the fact that because it's just warm out is going to affect the purchasing behavior, but it's completely true. I mean, even if you look at department stores will put certain items on clearance or on discount because people just aren't in the right state of mind to buy winter clothing. When it gets colder out, then you just start to think about, oh man, I need a new winter jacket, or I need a new jacket for this or this trip that's coming up. But you're not thinking about it in the summer or when you're not in that kind of environment.
Absolutely. So that I think was one of the challenges for the most part as far as what was going on. But as far as future, I mean, as we close in closer to autumn and winter, I think that we'll get a more steady rise in sales or not sales. I guess they're pre-order on in demand, right? So
yeah. The other thing I want to ask you here. One of the core skills, I would say, of an entrepreneur is being able to assemble a team around yourself, because we can only do so much ourselves. And that's something I'm still getting better at, is learning that I need to delegate a lot more than I do, not thinking that I have to do everything myself. For you, for your project, and also growing this online store, you've been doing this for 6 years now. What are your thoughts on that? How big is your team? How have you been growing it, et cetera?
So I mostly work with freelancers as far as partitioning out work. I work with designers. I work with designers and obviously the factories and stuff like that. But I do a majority of the marketing myself. I kind of hold myself responsible for branding and marketing and all that stuff because that's always been kind of the extremely fun part of the brand.
Do you get any help in the way of there are a lot of different promotional sites or agencies out there, different tools, like Kick Booster, et cetera. Have you used any of that kind of stuff?
So I use Kick Booster for the affiliate thing. That was pretty effective in getting blogs on board to obviously talk more about the campaign and get them excited about it. I also used, what is it called? Crowdster. Mm-hmm. I used that for the initial launch page that we used to sign people up, although I think we did that a little bit too late. I think that in hindsight, having a pre-campaign would have been a lot more effective. I think that's something that we failed to focus on a little bit, but
okay.
Better luck next time with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, my final question for you here, I think you've been super transparent here, just sharing what's been working with you for Instagram, how you can use that to sort of give people a vision of what they can do with your product and actually get some ideas going, and also the different ways that you've been driving traffic, whether it's email, PR, social media, et cetera. So thank you so much for sharing all that great info. My final question for you here is, what is it that you'd like to, or how would you like to grow in the future here with your product line and also you personally having launched these products yourself?
So I think, like I was talking about earlier, there's this global there's this global thing happening around our brand right now, and we have customers from all over the world. And I really want to focus in on luggage and travel more than just photography. I want to go wider with it. So we've been kind of focusing on solutions for the traveler. Most travelers that are avid travelers are photographers inherently because they want to capture that experience. So we're creating new stuff in our product line that kind of accommodates that geared nomad again, that person who's always on the go, that's always trying to capture it. And obviously today, as Instagram and all of these different social media platforms continue to be about kind of broadcasting one's experience, that type of lifestyle and behavior continues to grow. And so we want to create meaningful products that help people to travel and to explore the world.
Well said, well said. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people go to learn a bit more about some of the products you offer? Also, this new jacket that you've created.
So the jacket is also, information about the jacket is also up on www.langley.co. And you can find the rest of our products there as well.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Look forward to seeing your growth as you're launching this entire new product line. And I urge all the digital nomads out there, go and check out langley.co, LANGLY.co. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you enjoyed today's conversation where we talked about Instagram, we talked about social media, and specifically how you can drive more traffic and more funding to your Kickstarter or your Indiegogo campaign. One of the other resources that we mentioned, Kick Booster. That's a really great resource if you want to check that out, crowdcrux.com/kickbooster. But the other one, Crowdster. So I actually had the founder of Crowdster on my podcast in the past. past. And he's talked a lot about how you can use this database basically to either market to them directly or market to these super backers via creating lookalike audiences on Facebook. I know Crowdster has other ways you can help to grow your Twitter following and also do some PR and that kind of stuff. So Crowdster is something that for a low budget, low entry way, you can get involved. And if you're looking for a software tool to help you out with this whole crowdfunding business, you can look more into that. So I'm going to give you a link where if you go through this link, this is an affiliate link, and at no expense to you, just sort of as like a thank you, Sal, I'll get a small commission for your sign up, and we'll put that money back into creating more great educational free episodes for you, just like today's podcast episode. So if you're interested, you can go to crowdcrux.com/crowdster. That is crowdcrux.com/crowdster, crowdster. You go to that link, you can learn more about this service that the guest mentioned today, and also whether or not this is a good fit for you. So I hope you liked today's episode. Got some great stuff coming up in the next few weeks. Can't wait to show you, and I will see you next time.